Welcome to the Trinity Health IHA Medical Group Wednesday Wellness Series. This presentation is titled Lifestyle Medicine, Dr. Bob's 8 Keys for Health and Success, and the presenting provider is Trinity Health IHA Medical Group Family Medicine and Lifestyle Medicine physician Robert Breakey. Dr. Breakey is a diplomat of the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine and serves as a medical director for the Trinity Health IHA Medical Group William J. Folletti Center for Lifestyle Medicine. He sees patients at their recently launched practice, which is Lifestyle Medicine Primary Care, in the Arbor Park Medical Center in Ypsilanti. Welcome, Dr. Breakey.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Yes, appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Got over 300 on the line, and I know some of you are watching this later on the recording. It's a beautiful summer evening, so I really appreciate you taking time out to talk about health and wellness, one of my favorite topics. As Allison mentioned, I've been a family lifestyle medicine physician in the Ann Arbor area now, and it's been 39 years. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm a fifth generation graduate from University of Michigan. My great-great-grandfather graduated in 1859, was a doc in the Civil War. His son was 1893 and started the Department of Dermatology at Michigan. My grandpa and dad were both urologists, and I graduated in 81 as a fifth generation. So I'm proud to be here, and go blue. With that, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. Let me see how my share screen is working. Allison, are you seeing my title slide here?
We are seeing your title slide. Yep, looks great.
Okay, good. So first question, why wellness? And for anybody, all of you, I'm sure there's many different reasons. For me, upper left, you see our 3-year-old rescue dog and my lovely wife. Right below there, my 96-year-old mom. Spending time with family and going on vacation time, adventuring are all very important to me. Up on the upper right, my 3 grandchildren. And I want to be healthy and vital and active well into my elder years so that I can enjoy time with them and adventures in life. Everybody's different in that, and we'll come back around to that. But as we think about why we're here, everybody kind of think for yourself of what's important for you. And I think what you'll find is without your health, none of the rest of it matters. So how do we promote that health? How do we increase our chances of health and vitality, which then lead to a success in whatever else we do? Well, let's back up to the 1960s. I was the oldest of 4 brothers, and we grew up at a time when ultra-processed foods were just coming into their own, when meat was the best source of protein, when everybody smoked. And in fact, it was 1964 that the then Surgeon General, Dr. Luther Terry, came out with a landmark report. And I like this because it will carefully illustrate one of the key lifestyle medicine metrics that many people know about already. And that is that at this time, smoking was just normal. 43% of adults smoked. It was in restaurants and airplanes, even hospitals. It was just basically normal, and people thought it was good for them to relieve stress. But in this report, he reviewed over 6,000 studies causally linking smoking with lung cancer, emphysema, chronic lung disease, heart disease. And now that's second nature. We just know that's true. But at the time, it was brand news. It did, however, lead to one of the greatest public health achievements of all time. You see the blue line is male smokers per capita, and it peaked in 63 and then started downward and continues down to only 14% today. The red line is lung cancer death rates from men. And you see with about a 30-year lag there that as the smoking rates went down went the rates of lung cancer. So the area under this curve from the downslope on the red line is clearly lives saved from this one lifestyle medicine intervention. That is, not smoking reduces your risk of lung cancer by 90%. Pretty cool. And in fact, what else could be like this? Well, fast forward to 1990, Dr. Dean Ornish there in the middle came out with his landmark report where he took 2 groups of late-stage heart disease patients and put them on his 4-part lifestyle medicine program, including whole food plant-based diet, daily exercise, stress management, and social connectedness, hoping to just keep the disease from getting worse. Well, to his amazement, it actually reversed. People in his intervention group started reversing their angina, their heart disease, lowering their risk for future heart attacks. And this was, again, big news at the time. Later, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn of the Cleveland Clinic repeated these studies with just a dietary intervention, just following the whole food plant-based lifestyle, and indeed found amazing results. This is an angiogram, which is a shadow of an artery on a 44-year-old surgeon's front side of his heart. And you see over on the left here, this lower part of this, what's called widowmaker artery, was all ragged and blocked. 3 years later on his program, squeaky clean and open. So body went into a healing stage and actually healed the plaque and atherosclerotic blockage that was present in that artery. Wow, he went on to later state that coronary artery disease, which is our leading killer, is a benign foodborne illness which need never exist or progress. And his study, later study of 199 patients, those 183 that stuck with the diet, 40% of them had had stroke or heart attack prior to this, and then it went down to 0.6%. Amazing results just from a dietary intervention. By the way, those who didn't stick with the program, the 17, 60% of them went on to have a repeat heart attack or stroke. So you actually have to do it for it to work, but amazing results just from this lifestyle intervention. Well, fast forward to 2015, Dr. Michael Greger there in the middle wrote a book called How Not to Die, where he cataloged that all 15 of our leading killers are preventable and in many cases reversible with some straightforward lifestyle metrics. High blood pressure, breast cancer, prostate cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's are largely preventable with some straightforward lifestyle metrics. Well, again, this is something that I, from early on in my career, had already begun to realize. And in 1989, my daughter, she's 36 now, but she inspired me to promote health with all of my patients. And I found that over and over I was writing, eat this, exercise this, health. So I developed my handout called Dr. Bob's 8 Keys for Health and Success. And any of my thousands of patients over the years will tell you that I provided this for them, sometimes many times over during my career, to help give them a guideline for how they too could optimize their chances of future health and better current vitality. Let's walk through each of these along with the resources that I put at the end. Here they are in summary. Eat for health, drink water, avoid cow's milk, eat fiber, stay active, your environment matters, sleep well, and take time for play and relaxation. So starting with eating for health, choose abundant vegetables, whole grains, fruits, and all types of beans, peas, lentils, legumes, along with some nuts and seeds, and include 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed daily, which provide healthy omega-3 fatty acids and help improve cholesterol, GI tolerance, microbiome, and are very healthy. Following through on this particular number 1 is to minimize or ideally eliminate animal foods, meat, dairy, and eggs. We'll come back to this in a minute. And minimize your refined sugar, salt, oils, and other processed and ultra-processed foods. Finally, fill your pantry with health-supporting foods and make a conscious choice to eat when you're hungry and choose foods that both taste great and have great nutritional value. You do need a supplement of vitamin B12. In fact, everybody should take some as insurance, 100 micrograms daily, or if over 65, 1,000 micrograms daily, but especially important if you're moving towards a plant-based lifestyle. Why do I choose this for number 1? Well, the standard American diet has become the leading cause of death and disability in our country. It used to be tobacco back in the 90s, but now with rates of smoking declining and poor diet increasing, this is now our leading cause of health and disability. So I focus a lot on this. And to help people kind of think about foods, I put them in 4 categories. You've got animal on the left, plant on the right, unprocessed on top, and processed on the bottom. So you see the idea here. Down here are processed animal foods like hot dogs and chicken McNuggets. Up here is, at least it looks similar to the way nature presented it to us. Down here are foods that started from plants, but are now not recognizable from their usual form, commonly filled with large amounts of fat, salt, and sugar. And up here is fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. Um, in general, if you want to improve health, you're moving towards the upper right-hand quadrant there. If someone says they're vegan, good for them. They've eliminated the left side, but you could be vegan and eating French fries, Coca-Cola, and Oreos from that lower right corner and not healthy. Or if someone says, "Hey, I'm paleo, I don't eat any processed foods," you could be that. That's good for you, but you still could be eating large amounts of the animal foods in the upper left corner that include large amounts of cholesterol, saturated fat, and pro-inflammatory compounds. So let's walk through these a little bit more. And again, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on the lower components here. Processed foods are not really food at all. They're industrially produced food-like substances designed by companies to bring us in and get us hooked. Where there's most confusion, though, is are we natural omnivores? Should we be eating animal proteins or should we preferentially have the plant foods? By the way, none of this is all or nothing. These are guidelines, and you're working towards optimizing it or optimize your risk. And we'll come back to that in a little bit too. So to answer the should we include animal foods in a healthy diet, we got to think back to what makes a food health supporting. Um, and there's several characteristics. Foods should be rich in antioxidants, high in dietary fiber, alkalinizing, free of cholesterol, anti-inflammatory, rich in phytonutrients, and balanced set of macronutrients, that is, proteins, carbs, and fats. So let's walk through each of these and see where that plant and animal foods compare. On antioxidants, the average plant foods have a mean antioxidant level of over 1,100 units versus only 18 for animal foods. You see the max numbers there too. So plants are naturally rich in antioxidants because they have to survive the firestorm of photosynthesis, and animals use them up for their purposes. In fact, that's what we need from our plant foods to help out the process of free radical formation and extracting energy from food. So what this means is these free radicals that are formed in this process are highly reactive, nasty little molecules with an unpaired electron that go around causing DNA damage, can lead to cancer. Proteins get denatured, setting up an immune response, leading to systemic inflammation. They cause damage to the endothelium, that's the lining of the blood vessels, leading to those plaque and atherosclerosis for heart attacks and strokes, and then cellular damage, leading to premature aging and organ dysfunction. So it's important to have a diet high in antioxidants. Fruits, vegetables are the kings and queens, whole grains and beans also. So we'll put a 5-star here and an X on the animal foods, which have very little. What about fiber? We're going to come back to this with key number 4, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but the bottom line is plant foods are the only ones with fiber. So we'll put a 5-star there, and the animal foods have zero dietary fiber in meat, dairy, or eggs. Again, we'll come back to that with key number 4. Alkaline means that the food should be easy on our kidneys. In contrast, animal foods have a high dose of 2 particular amino acids called cysteine and methionine, which metabolize to sulfuric acid. And fish, pork, and poultry are the worst by this metric, putting a strain on the kidneys and setting us up for chronic kidney disease. The fruits and vegetables, which are alkalinizing beans, can help partially offset that. So people who do eat those meats should help to counterbalance that with lots of fruits and vegetables. But in this metric, we see the animal foods are acidic, plant foods are the alkalinizing. So we'll put a 5-star and an X over here. Cholesterol free, there is some confusion on this because industries try to create confusion and make people think that cholesterol doesn't matter anymore. The reality is that dietary cholesterol does lead to increase in serum cholesterol, does lead to increased risk in heart disease. Cholesterol only comes from animal foods and does not occur at all in any plant foods. The serum cholesterol is reflective of this. Americans on a high animal food diet have some of the highest cholesterol levels in the world, whereas those in rural Africa, China, or many indigenous tribes have levels of between 90 and 140. In those cultures, heart disease is virtually unknown. In ours, it's epidemic. Almost everybody, whether they have symptoms or not, has some degree of coronary artery clogging. So we'll put a big 5-star here, no cholesterol there, and yes, in animal foods. Next is inflammation. And plant foods are naturally anti-inflammatory. We've already talked about antioxidants. Second is supporting a healthy microbiome, and we'll come back to this on key number 3 on fiber, and then rich in phytonutrients. So we'll come back to this as well. In contrast, many reasons animal foods cause inflammation. I won't review them all here. The heme iron in red meat, the arachidonic acid in chicken and eggs are a couple examples, but in this case, carnitine and choline naturally present in meat, eggs, and shellfish metabolize to a substance called trimethylamine. The bacteria in the gut of people who eat these foods turn them into this, and this is oxidized in the liver to TMAO, a bad actor. You can measure this in people's bloodstream 2 hours after an Egg McMuffin meal was used in the original study. The TMAO levels shoot up, and on ultrasound, the arteries stiffen by 50%, meaning the heart's going to have to work that much harder to pump the blood. So this is just one example of where these foods are actually pro-inflammatory. So we'll put a 5-star here for anti-X over here. Next is phytonutrients. These are over 30,000 disease-preventing nutrients naturally present in plant foods. Phyto stands for plant, so none in animal foods. And you've heard of some of these bioflavonoids and citrus, lycopene in tomatoes, retinoids in sweet potatoes and carrots. These are not essential for life like vitamins and minerals, but they are essential for health. And we know that people that don't get enough of these foods end up with health challenges and less vitality than they would ever have. So in many ways, you can help assess the health value of a food by the presence of phytonutrients only present in plant foods. And the next is balanced, healthy macronutrients. Again, we could spend a whole hour on this one too, but the protein is not only plenty of protein in plant-based foods, average is 15 to 20%, especially beans being the most. And all we need is really about 10% of our calories from protein to easily meet our needs. But even more importantly, the quality of the protein is much better in plant foods. We already mentioned the acidic nature of animal proteins. They're much more allergenic because they're more like our proteins, especially dairy and eggs are the 2 leading causes of food allergy. They're pro-inflammatory, inducing and setting up a host of inflammatory markers, and they stimulate a hormone called IGF-1 that fans the flames of cancer. So if you look at people on high plant protein versus high animal protein diet, there is a 400% increased risk of cancer over the following 18 years in people aged 40 to 65. This was a landmark study showing the importance of this particular hormone. So many people think that chicken is a good source of protein. They have obesified chickens since I was a kid, and they're now, instead of kind of 70-30 protein to fat, chicken is a majority of the calories from fat now, and also very high in saturated fat and cholesterol. So it does not, it's no longer any different than red meat as far as its effect on vascular disease, Alzheimer, and cancer. What about the fat? So we already talked about cholesterol. Saturated fats are also one of the most pro-inflammatory components of any food. You can measure inflammation markers in the bloodstream just by feeding a person saturated fat. Plant fats, much less saturated, the exception of coconut and palm oil, and you should avoid those as well, mostly in processed foods. Animal foods also naturally contain trans fats. These are the ones that were recently banned in our country. They used to use them a lot. You remember Crisco and deep fried, and these trans fats found to induce many thousands of cases of heart disease and cancer. So they banned them. They don't occur in plant foods, or very little, and are naturally present still in animal foods. That's now the leading supplier in the American diet. Also, animals sequester heavy metals and contaminants in their fat. And when you eat them, especially seafood, you get a lot of contaminants versus much less in plant-based fats. And then the last is carbs, animal foods. You want to have the majority of your calories from unprocessed carbs like lentils, broccoli, apples, and whole grains. And there's virtually none in animal foods except for lactose in milk, which metabolizes to galactose. Fiber is also a carb, and we talked about that, and we'll come back to that one as well. So for all three, fats, carbs, and protein, much superior form and right balance of amounts in the plant foods. So we'll put a 5-star here and here. Are we noticing a pattern here? I think you can see that this is not just a coincidence. The reason that we humans do better with whole, unprocessed plant foods is this is what we've all done. Um, Through 80% of human evolution, we live much like our primate cousins on leaves, greens, nuts, seeds, and tubers. During part of the Paleo period, when which was only a small part of human evolution, we moved north and sometimes had to hunt to survive and make it to the ripe old age of 25 to procreate. But if you plan to live past that, you no longer need those foods that are not a natural part of our diet. So we'll put a 5-star for health supporting and not so much for the animal. And that brings us to the concept of the whole food plant-based diet. Again, not all or nothing, but the more you can shift towards this, the better. And this is consistent with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, whole food plant-based plate, where you see half fruits and vegetables, a quarter plant proteins in the form of beans, nuts, and seeds, and then a quarter whole grains like quinoa, whole grain breads and pastas, oats, and rice, brown rice. These diets have been shown not only to promote health, but to help reverse disease like Dr. Esselstyn and Ornish have shown. So the big question many times people ask is, so how whole food plant-based do I need to be? I want the benefits, but I'm not sure I can go all in. Well, is moderation in all things good enough? Or as the ADA says, are there no bad foods, only bad diets? Well, if we can think of our percent of calories from whole food plant-based, like how much of your calories come from that upper right quadrant, we know that the standard American diet is only 11% from that quadrant. 32% animal foods, 52% processed. It's even worse for kids, unfortunately. So we'll put that over here and label it SAD for standard American diet. On the other end is the power plate, which again is what they eat in the blue zones where people live longest and healthiest, and areas of the world where heart disease doesn't exist. And that's like 95% plus whole food plant-based. So it turns out that down in the between 10 and 70%, there is a gradual improvement as you go up there, but you're still in the incite and accelerate all the way up to about 75%. Later, slower progression, and then yellow, finally, you're mitigating, arresting disease, and where the real reversal happens in Dr. Esselstyn, Ornish, and other studies is in the last 5%. The USDA recommends about a 50% eat more fruits and veggies, cut back on red meat, etc. The DASH and Mediterranean diet bring us to about 70%, predicate even more. And the general principles here are that the more you do, the lower your risk. There's no guarantees either way. Eating poorly doesn't mean that you'll necessarily get sick, and eating perfectly doesn't necessarily mean you won't, but it puts the odds in your favor. We see this in several population studies. The Adventist Health Study with over 60,000 participants. And these folks are similar in other ways. They don't smoke or drink, they exercise, they take good care of themselves, but they do eat differently. Only the ones who excluded meat, dairy, and eggs were normal weight in this BMI study. And similarly, the prevalence of type 2 diabetes goes down significantly as you eliminate the animal foods from the diet. You have to be careful not to just interpret cause and effect from population studies, but we now have several cohort and other studies showing the same thing. General principles, this isn't all or nothing. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. The more you do, the greater your health gains. And even just adding one serving of fruit or vegetables or switching one serving of meat for beans per day can lead to measurable improvement in health gains. The earlier you start, the better, but it's never too late. At any age, it's not too late to start making changes. One other major principle, you want to aim for high nutrition value that is high in fiber, antioxidants, and phytonutrients, and low calorie density. What this means practically is, and this is the calorie density per, the number of calories per pound of food. So vegetables, 100 calories, fruits, 300, 600 for legumes and whole grains. And then you start getting into the animal and processed foods with over 1,000, 1,500, and finally oil at the bottom with 4,000 calories per pound. And what that means practically is like for a whole pound of vegetables in a salad, 1 tablespoon of oil dressing or ranch dressing on there adds another 120 calories, just making it 60% fat. We'll come back to that in a minute too, but you want to pay attention to low calorie density, high nutrient value foods to help maintain proper weight and health and artery function. Let's look at a typical, quote, healthy American meal with apple, broccoli, glass of milk, rice, and salmon. We think of this as, or look at it by volume wise as, whoa, that's about half fruits and vegetables, healthy fish, and getting your calcium from dairy, right? Well, if you look at the calorie density of these foods, though, the broccoli serving is only 30, apple 90, 160 for the rice, and up to 240 for the salmon. So if we look at those calories that are whole food plant-based, you get 120 versus 550 for the other. This meal, although it looks like half fruits and veggies, whole food plant-based, is really only 18% of the calories. Again, we can come back to this in question and answer if you want, but if we now reframe this by looking at it by as if they were that volume-wise, you're really getting the vast majority from these animal and processed foods. And just a little bit of broccoli over there, as far as how many calories are coming from that component. Corollary to this is minimize messing up a good food. What if we add just a little cheese sauce to that broccoli? Well, the cheese sauce is made from butter, flour, milk, cheddar cheese, and has 230 calories for 1/3 of a cup. So we've got a whole cup of broccoli, 1/3 of a cup of cheese sauce. Looks like 75% whole food plant-based, but adding the 18 grams of total fat, 11 of saturated cholesterol, and sodium means this is really now only, it went from 100% whole food plant-based on the left down to just 12% once you add that little bit of cheese sauce. So again, volume-wise, think of this as something you want to really be careful of. There's more to it as well. Often messing up a good food cancels out the benefit. For example, coffee contains a unique phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Tea has polyphenols, and these are anti-inflammatory. They suppress cancer, enhance immune function. But even a small amount of cow's milk, and we think it's the casein in the milk that binds those phytonutrients and cancels out their effect. Similarly, canceling out the effect of berries or chocolate with just a small amount of milk or cream. So be careful, don't mess up a good food. The next time you're thinking about that, try actually healthy, good, tasty alternatives. Like instead of broccoli and cheese sauce, add some vegan nutritional yeast quote cheese sauce. Just Google vegan cheese sauce, and you'll see many recipes pop up featuring nutritional yeast as the flavoring. For coffee and tea, instead of cream, use soy milk. For a salad and ranch or oil dressing, I like an 18-year balsamic, just use different flavored vinegars. And for veggies with ranch or sour cream dressing, just instead use hummus. Lots of good alternatives to keep you there. And this brings me to another concept of find foods you love that also love you back. So you get the idea down here. Here's foods that you don't love and that don't love you back. Now, everybody's different. Maybe some of you do like beef jerky, liver, or oysters. I never did, but these are just examples. But if it's not good for you and you don't love it, that's easy. Leave that one be. Up here, you want to find foods in the whole food plant-based component. And you don't have to eat them all, but the ones you do like, maybe it's lentils, corn on the cob, and cherries, pick those and go for it. Eat lots. Over here are foods that are good for you. They love you, but you don't love them. And again, maybe you do love these foods, but as examples, if you don't love it, that's okay. don't let that get in your way. I've heard a number of people say, well, I could never be vegan because I don't like tofu. You don't need to eat tofu. It's good for you, and there are ways to cook it that may make you like it, but don't let that get in your way. Obviously, this is the hardest quadrant. The foods that you love that don't love you back. Now, sorry, but sticking with these foods is like a dysfunctional relationship. If you had a friend or someone you were going out to dinner with, having fun with, and you found out that he or she was stabbing you in the back, talking behind your back, embezzling from you, that's no friend. Similarly, here, if you find out that these foods, and I'm helping you peek behind the curtain now today, are actually clogging your arteries, setting you up for cancer, later in life, Alzheimer's, arthritis, and general fatigue, that's no friend. Acknowledge them, thank them for their calling for you, and then leave them be. Again, not all or nothing, but the more you can follow this, the better you'll be. So in summary, a whole plant foods, that's key number one, antioxidant and phytonutrient rich, supporting your microbiome, alkalinizing and balanced macronutrients. So key number two, don't worry, the other seven are not as long as number one, because that's our leading cause of death and disability, leading high leverage point for most people, but the others are also important. Water's our natural thirst quencher, making up 50 to 70% of our bodies, and other beverages filled with alcohol, fat, sugar, other ingredients can interfere with our sleep cycles, contribute to obesity. Many people can drink 500 calories a day in other beverages. This adds up to 3,500 calories a week or a pound a week, 52 pounds a year that you otherwise have to work off or not eat in terms of real food. So even juicing, which removes the fiber, is counterproductive. By the way, tea and coffee, which are 99% water in moderation, can be very healthy. Just skip the cream and sugar and use a bit of soy milk or oat milk, like we talked about. How much water to drink? At any given time, older adults, 20 or 30% of us are dehydrated. This increases risk for heart disease, pneumonia, blood clots. For younger people, a dark amber urine can be a good clue, but this is not so reliable. So make sure to drink water even between meals. Best evidence shows that you get about 4 cups a day from your food, and for women, an additional 4 to 7 cups, men 6 to 11 cups of water a day. This assumes moderate activity, and the reason that there's a variation, it depends on the size of the person, how much humidity and how much they're working out, or how much they may need. You can overdo it, even too much water, so don't overdo it, but most people drink far too little water, and it's the only real natural beverage. Key number three is avoid cow's milk. These cheese, yogurt, and ice cream are, in reality, nature's perfect food for baby cows. They're not a natural component of human nutrition, and no other mammal drinks milk after infancy. In fact, most of the world's population has lactose intolerance, meaning they get sick, diarrhea, gas, and bloating right away if they drink milk because they're unable to split the lactose milk sugar. This should be a clue that it's at best unnecessary, but importantly, it's not a real human food. It's a baby cow food. If you look at what's in it, it's more than half fat, it's high in saturated fat, cholesterol, and 70% of skim milk is sugar or lactose. This is percent of calories. These proteins contribute, already mentioned, to allergy, autoimmune disease, chronic kidney disease. They produce excess mucus, can contribute to osteoporosis or bone thinning, breast, colon, and especially prostate cancer. And one of the key links for milk is both breast and prostate cancers. It always contains bovine estrogen, that's hormones from the cow, and it's nearly always contaminated with antibiotics, growth stimulants, bovine leukemia virus, plus cells and environmental contaminants. So leave it on the shelf. And good news, compared to when I started on this path, many great non-dairy alternatives readily available from different kinds of milks, cheese, yogurts. Be careful of some of the processed cheese, yogurt, and ice cream. They're occasionally good on for treats, occasional treat foods, but they are not regulars because they're pretty processed. Still, they're way less worse than the real cow stuff. Calcium is easily obtained from eating plenty of beans and greens. We're all familiar with the milk mustache ads. The dairy industry has been very good at promoting this and making people think from childhood on that we should be getting plenty of milk, and it's just not supported by the science. In fact, even if we're just only this, it should steer you away from milk. We know that bovine leukemia virus is present in almost all milk samples. And in fact, of the large dairy herds, which make up most of the cows in the United States, 100% of them were infected with bovine leukemia virus. Well, for a while we thought, well, so what? Bovine is cow. It causes leukemia in cows, but not in humans. Until we got this data. They took breast biopsies from women who had breast cancer, and they found the DNA from bovine leukemia virus stitched into the cancer cells, indicating causal effect. We know that many cancers are caused by viruses, including Kaposi sarcoma with AIDS or cervical cancer and HPV. Well, now we have evidence that as many as 37% of breast cancers may be attributable to BLV exposure in dairy or raw red meats. Again, many other reasons, including the saturated fat and other, but have time to get into all of them. But at this point, just say no to dairy. Next is eat fiber. Health supporting foods contain dietary fiber and minimize your processed white rice, white breads. These metabolize quickly to sugar in your digestive system. The whole grains, in contrast, are much more slowly digested, and they support healthy bowel microbacteria, your microbiome. They help detoxify and overall colon health and function. Let's dig into this a little more because these variety of plant foods can help decrease your risk of diabetes, heart disease, several cancers, and the animal foods are devoid of fiber. We say when a woman is pregnant, she's eating for two. In reality, all the time, we are all eating for 38 trillion and one. You're the one, and you've got over 38 trillion microorganisms, mostly in the colon, but throughout the body, and you work together as a community. You feed them, carry them around, keep them warm, protect them from predators, and in return, they support your immune function, hormone balance. They help to manage toxins, uh, nourish your colon with short chain fatty acids. They lower systemic and colon inflammation, produce nutrients, signal satiety by sending that message to the brain, and therefore help reduce signals for obesity, and they aid in nutrient absorption. In contrast, if you starve them, they lead to inflammation of the colon, production of toxins, they increase the reabsorption of estrogen, create leaky gut, and increase risk of autoimmune disease. What do they eat? Fiber. The average American only gets 15 grams. The dietary guidelines call for twice that. Sadly, only 3% of Americans even meet that goal. But your minimum goal really should be 60 to 100 grams a day, which is what our ancestors ate and is most common now in areas of the world where people live longest and healthiest. If you look at 2,000 calories worth of beans, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, you find they get 60 to over 140 grams. You'll generously meet your needs, whereas zero from sugar, oil, and animal foods, very little in processed foods. So starvation for these foods, nourishment for your microbiome and for yourself. We can see this in population studies where as the amount of fiber in the diet goes up, in this case from 15 to 60 grams a day, down goes the incidence of heart disease, breast cancer, and diabetes. It's not only the fiber in this, it's that fiber is a marker for good, healthy other components of foods, as we also talked about. So, in particular, the phytonutrients are attached to the fiber and only released when our microbiome eat the fiber away. Refining the brown, white, whole grain to white rice or whole wheat to white flour or juicing fruits and veggies throws away much of the phytonutrients. So eat the whole food. And by the way, phytonutrients, and I won't read this whole, but ChatGPT makes a great definition if you want to go back and watch it on a rerun. They are antioxidant, immune boosting, preventing cancer, diabetes, anti-aging effects. These are, again, as I mentioned, not just optional, but if you want health, you want lots of phytonutrients. So eat the fiber that comes with it. Maybe be aware of Dr. Mike, or not Dr., but Michael Pollan has famous quote, eat food, not too much, and mostly plants. I like this, but it's not very well defined. A lot of people think of Twinkies and cheeseburgers as food, but they're not. He means eat real food, but it doesn't say that. Not too much, really. If you eat whole food plant-based, you can eat as much as you want. That's one of the advantages, counting calories, carbs, or weighing your food. And mostly plants could be 51%, whereas the more the better is the real answer. So I changed it to something even simpler: fiber in every bite. And again, it's not all or nothing, but that'll help you with health. Key number 5 is be active. Do whatever it takes to keep yourself moving and make it fun. Try to aim for at least 150 to 300 minutes of moderate exercise, or half that for vigorous exercise. You get double credit for that. Um, and to choose activities that you'll stick with, incorporate it into your day by using stairs, parking further away, take the scenic route. And it helps to kind of help you discover your why for this one. This is me about 10 feet over the Pacific Ocean in Cabo when I was 60 years old. Let's see if this short video will work for you. When I first saw this, I was like, I got to do this. The jet ski over on the side there, you see, is shooting water out through my feet, 3,000 gallons per minute, and holding me up in the air there. It's a little scary at first. This is the first time I'd ever done it. But I like to be adventurous. I want my health, my balance, my equilibrium so that I can do what I want to do. And the exercise helps me to accomplish that. By the way, that's my wife right over there on the beach. You see her right there. She's watching carefully. So it's not for everybody, but if you want to be able to do what you want to do, keep active. Helps control weight, reverse many chronic conditions, improve mood, energy, better sleep, sex life, and can be fun and social. So get moving. How much? I mentioned 150 to 300 minutes of moderate, which is a brisk walk, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous activity like jogging, and also some weekly strength training. And the more the better. Get specific, attainable goals and have fun with it. Next is your environment matters. We know that smoking anything is not good. Recreational drugs. I think the one that people sometimes get confused about is alcohol, thinking that red wine may be in some way healthy. And again, not all or nothing. Still do what you want to do with your discretionary extra calories, but recognize that alcohol does increase the risk of heart disease, several cancers, liver disease, brain challenges, pancreatitis, and thinning bones. It's the answer is the less the better. Next is sleep well, 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep. Wind down routine before bed, and no TV or internet for an hour before bed. Don't use caffeine later in the day. Avoid nicotine and limit alcohol. Don't use it for a sleep aid. Don't use your bed for reading TV and other things that get you excited. Use it for sleep. Limit your naps, and with a good night's sleep, you'll really improve your quality of life. Probably more than any of the other keys for health, this one relates to the others too. Without a good night's sleep, you don't make good eating decisions, and without eating healthy, you can't sleep well. Without sleep, you don't feel up to exercising, and exercise actually improves sleep quality. Substance use, similarly, we talked about stress, and with better management can help you sleep better, and with better sleep, you'll be better able to manage stress. So this one works synergistically with the others to help all the rest. So good resources include American Sleep Association, sleepeducation.org, and a great book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. It's not just the why, it's the whole picture of how you can do better too. Next is take time to play, relax, and connect with others. Stress is a normal part of life, but finding balance and making time to enjoy life with others helps to improve that balance. And Dean Ornish calls this really the most important pillar of all. Laughter, time with friends and family help you to enjoy what you're doing and better commit to the other pillars as well. We also know in several studies that chronic loneliness increases everything from stroke to cancer risk, depression, and can contribute to many chronic diseases. So get out there, find ways to volunteer, start a gratitude journal, resource center, community groups, religious or spiritual groups, animal shelters, organize community events, take a course, find ways to get out and involved, and this will help you to improve your health. There's some more helpful resources on this one as well, and you can use these to further your goals. At the end of these 8 keys, I provide additional resources for my patients on the 8 keys handout. And um, Allison, I know you said we could include with the email. I'll just give you the latest copy of my 8 keys handout so you'll have all of these. But these groups, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, great resource for recipes and information. Nutritionfacts.org, I'll come to in a second. Forks Over Knives, a great documentary and associated website. Plant-based nutrition support group has seminars, all virtual now, that much like this will enhance your education. Cooking classes. Rochester Lifestyle Medicine has their 15-day jumpstart. PPOD is a group that does plant-based prevention of disease organization with seminars, mostly for healthcare professionals, but anyone can come. Virtual seminars in the lifestylemedicine.org. Again, you can either get this on the reruns or take a screenshot for the websites for these, but I encourage you to look into these because a lot of great support is available through these organizations. Here's also a fun one. The Holistic Holiday at Sea is a whole food plant-based cruise with nationally known speakers. Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. Dean and Aisha Shirzai, who wrote the book on preventing Alzheimer's. 2 years ago, my colleague Alberto Nassif and his wife joined my wife and I on this cruise. It was a lot of fun. CME available for health professionals and some great vacation time as well. So I'll be speaking on this next cruise coming up next March. Join us there if you're so inclined. I mentioned nutritionfacts.org many times, Dr. Michael Greger. You can search this bar for almost any topic from gallstones to heart disease to obesity, and up will pop several videos or blogs relating to how you can, the evidence, the science behind yourself there. Forks Over Knives and Game Changers and What the Health are 3 highly recommended documentaries, feature-length documentaries that really help to bring it home for you. And then the How Not to Die book I mentioned earlier, and his newest book, How Not to Age, are also evidence-based without any conflict of interest built in. So you'll find those as well. So bottom line, live your life as if your health and your life itself depend on it, because it does. If we think of the analogy of a tree here on the left growing in healthy soil, that it's not compacted, it's lots of nutrients, versus one over here growing in compacted dry soil, it's going to be a lot different. Well, you see the analogy here. A person following a whole food plant-based lifestyle, daily exercise, appropriately managing their stress and connections, develops an environment with a healthy microbiome, rich in phytonutrients, antioxidants, leading to strong blood flow, low inflammation, healthy organs, everything from brain, heart, kidneys to all over the body, vitality, wellness, independence, and freedom. In contrast, most of the people live over here in the roots of despair on the lower right quadrant with processed and animal foods, sedentary lifestyle, and chronic stress, leading to systemic inflammation. The trunk of the tree here is ischemia, which is low blood flow and inflammation, leading to organ dysfunction, chronic pain, debility, heart disease, and depression. So the good news is the choice is yours. You can choose the routes that lead to this positive outcome in the upper left, or choose the routes that end up over on the upper right. Here's some more resources. Our colleagues, lifestyle medicine colleagues at the hospital, provide free cooking classes, free recorded or live options, anyone, anywhere. And they're nutritionists. They're certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, provide a great service for us. Their Foundations of Lifestyle Medicine Class 2 is 6 weeks of virtual instruction in all aspects of lifestyle medicine. So this is a quick overview, but they'll provide you the detail that I'm sure you'll quite enjoy as well. And finally, our Center for Lifestyle Medicine at IHA provides what we call shared medical appointments. These are group visits with anywhere from 6 to 12 people getting together at a time, talking about their health conditions. And in the process, a lot of questions come up. the number on the bottom there if you're interested in scheduling a visit there. We also have individual consultations. That same number can get you to with me or one of our other lifestyle medicine trained docs. And then finally, Allison mentioned on May 1st, I transitioned my all family practice to a lifestyle medicine only practice. My practice has actually been closed for the last 25 years, but I'm open again now with my lifestyle medicine primary care practice and a team-based approach, including health coach, nutritionist that's trained in lifestyle medicine, exercise physiologist. We approach it from this perspective. Unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover all that, so there's a monthly fee to go with it. But if you're interested in exploring that, um, uh, screenshot or follow through on the website as mentioned there, and I'll give you all the details. Finally, Dr. John McDougall was one of my early mentors and a pioneer in this field. Unfortunately, passed away recently, but his quotes are very illustrative. Day by day, you'll be making your best effort at creating better health. And day by day, you'll find yourself looking better, weighing less, and feeling more energy and confidence. It doesn't happen without effort, but that's what makes it great. You can earn the right to be healthier, happier, and more vital, beautiful, and alive. Enjoy it. You deserve to look, feel it, and feel great. The last story is about Alice. About a year and a half ago, I was in my office and my medical assistant came in and she said, well, the lady in room 9 there, she just wants to say goodbye. She's here for Medicare wellness. And I said, excuse me? She said, well, she's feeling well. She's not sure she really needs to be here, but she wants to say goodbye. I said, never mind, I'll figure it out. So I walk into room 9 and Alice stands up and she's smiling. And she says, Dr. Breakey, I'm moving to Traverse City, so I won't be seeing you anymore. But I just want to thank you. I said, Alice, what'd I do? She said, well, Dr. Breakey, 30 years ago, you inspired me to take better care of myself and go plant-based in my eating. And look at me now. I'm 68, I'm normal weight. I've got no medicine or health conditions. She said, you gave me a better life. I said, oh, wow, Alice, thank you. I said, I appreciate that. But you did the heavy lifting. You know, you learned what you needed to do. You how to cook differently, how to stand up to relatives who told you were going to die. You made it through holidays. You did this. She said, well, I wouldn't have done it without you. And I said, okay, we'll take joint credit for your better life. We hugged, and she's still doing well now in retirement up in Traverse City. So that's what inspires me. It takes a little longer with people. Sometimes they don't want to hear the message, but I love teaching and spreading health. And when folks like Alice and dozens, really hundreds of others over my career have come forward and said, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm so happy to be here and provide you all with this overview as well. So, Allison, let's move to questions.
Hey.
We've got some time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Breakey. If you would like to ask a question of Dr. Breakey, you can do so by entering it into the Q&A feature, which again is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. A lot of you have already made your way there, so we have a number of questions to get started. So why don't we start with, is it ever too late to pursue a lifestyle medicine lifestyle?
Well, that's an interesting one. Short answer is no. As long as you're still alive, you can improve. Now, you'll never, if it's too far along, or you've got end stage chronic kidney disease on dialysis, you're not going to reverse that. If you've already had a stroke, you can't undo what's already been done there. But whatever you've had, even if you're in those states, improving your environment, improving your health, lowering your systemic inflammation can help you be better than where you were. And in many cases, even people with late stage heart disease, in both Dr. Ornish and Esselstyn studies, noted dramatic improvement and got back to doing things they never thought they would be able to do. Now, remember, though, that almost all Americans have some degree of heart disease. In studies of autopsies, even of kids, 100% had some already coronary disease. And the first symptom for most people of heart disease is called sudden death. For those people, it's too late. So don't wait to start making healthy changes now. Assume that you've got some of these things going on because we've all grown up in an environment where we were taught wrong, not the fault of our parents, but they thought they were doing well. And we may have done some damage that needs to be undone. So don't wait, but no, it's never too late to make a healthy life.
But you shouldn't be discouraged by your age. So whether you're 20, 30, or nearly 70 or 80 or 90, you can always make a move to a lifestyle medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah. In many cases, the further along you are, the more backlog you have to work off, even the more important it is that you do make the changes. Um, so the earlier you start, the better. But just because you can't go backwards, don't despair that. But no, anybody at any age, even 90, can get measurable improvement, often in joint pains and vitality, feeling of well-being, anxiety, depression, and lowering the risk of additional chronic disease or infections. So absolutely, go whatever age you're at, employ these principles to improve.
Okay. Can you offer any advice in managing anxiety?
Yes, anxiety is very common, and really you have to look across all of the keys for health, or all six pillars from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So, number one, in nutrition, your brain is an organ like many others, but it's really also quite different. It's only 2% of your body weight, but it consumes 25% of the energy. In that environment, a lot of free radicals are formed. So it's especially important to eat lots of antioxidants and fiber to help it function better. Many people find that anxiety, depression, and mood disorders get much better as they eat better. The second is stress management. Obviously, anxiety can be made worse by a hectic life, by not finding time for promote relaxation. And we mentioned some of the keys there. It might be gratitude journaling, volunteering, meditation, prayer, whatever works for you to help manage or mitigate the stress that often underlies much of the anxiety component. The third is sleep. There are these microglial cells in your brain that only during certain stages of sleep go in and clean up what's going on there, amyloid and other depositions. And unless you're getting quality sleep, those build up and the brain again doesn't work as well. Anxiety, depression are common manifestations of that. Um, the next is avoiding risky substances. Alcohol obviously is a brain depressant, smoking, nicotine, inflammatory, and depriving of blood flow. And then finally, exercise. Exercise induces better blood flow to the brain, improves moods, and in many studies, even just walking a half hour a day worked as well or better than the common anti-anxiety, antidepressant medications. So get moving, especially out in nature. They call it forest bathing. And it turns out the trees have their own microbiome. They're giving off into the air. That's that forest smell. It sticks to your mucous membranes. You swallow it, and it becomes part of your microbiome. So your microbiome is nourished not just by your food, but by getting out in nature as well. So absolutely, anxiety is a disease commonly treated as a symptom with medications, but it's not a disease at all. It's a symptom often rooted in lifestyle and balance. So thank you. Good question. Anxiety often improves greatly with lifestyle measures.
Okay. There are
Wow,
several.
57 questions. Oh
I
my God.
know, I know. I'm trying to combine some of them because there are some common themes. So a lot of
Yes.
people are curious about olive oil. We're all under the impression that olive oil is healthy. Can you talk about why it's not a great choice?
Yes, olive oil is indeed the least worst of the oils. If you look at many of the oils, they are uh, have more saturated fats. I know olive oil is more monounsaturated fats. The main reason, though, is the calorie density. 4,000 calories per pound means that even just 1 tablespoon of olive oil adds 120 calories to whatever you're doing it with. Further, when you heat it, it forms toxic substances as it oxidizes that are not so healthy. So frying in any kind of oil is not so healthy. It's also got no fiber. And one of the analogies that most people can understand is you want to eat the whole food that can put everything in it. So, for example, a sugar beet. In the beet, it has nitric oxide, fiber, proteins, many phytonutrients, and sucrose. But if you extract out that sucrose and get a bag of Domino sugar, then you've got just empty calories. Similarly, an olive has protein and fiber and phytonutrients. You squeeze out the oil, you're just having empty calories without what else came with it. So it's not a whole food, it's a processed food that's a component of a food. So with that kind of general guideline. So if you're going to have some oil, olive oil is the least worst, but especially if you're trying to watch your weight, make sure to minimize it. And some early studies showed that it might decrease stroke risk, but later studies have shown really not so much. So take and manage it with smaller amounts. But way better. Part of the reason it's got its good reputation is compared to the lard or butter or saturated fats, coconut or palm oil. It's way better than that. It's so you see what I'm saying when you take people on a high American fat diet filled with lard, butter, and egg yolks, and you put them on a Mediterranean diet with olive oil, they do way better. So that means that you're moved in the right direction. But there's a next step beyond that, which says minimize your oil of all kinds. And you can learn to stir fry with just a little bit of vegetable broth or white wine or water, nonstick pan, keep it moving. You can use non-oil salad dressings. Just get 18-year balsamic vinegar, as I mentioned. So you'll find that you'll need it less and less, and it's not a health food. Good
That's
question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that I learned from one of your lectures a couple of years ago was I didn't realize I could just use water in making stir fry. So that's a great tip. Okay, so we always get questions about calcium. How do you keep up your calcium levels without yogurt, milk, dairy?
Yeah, great question. We've been we call it brainwashed into thinking that milk is a good source of calcium, and it's not. The phosphorus in milk commonly binds that calcium and makes it not so bioavailable. Also, the animal protein in cow's milk encourages the kidneys to excrete more calcium out the back end. So you're getting some in the front side and putting out even more through the urine. And in many studies, milk does not improve bone density, decrease fracture risk. And in fact, if you look at population studies, those countries with the highest per capita milk consumption, United States, Finland, Norway, have the highest rates of osteoporosis and the highest fracture risk. Now, you have to be careful of cause and effect with population studies, but many subsequent cohort studies have shown that milk is not a good source of calcium. As far as to answer the question, where do you get it? Beans and greens. All forms of beans, tofu, lentils, hummus and soy, chickpeas are great sources of calcium, as are the green leafy vegetables, especially kale, collard, spinach, and you can get all the calcium you need from there. And because you're lowering your animal protein intake, you actually don't need as much calcium. Dr. Greger, in his book, How Not to Age, has a great chapter on preserving your bone health. Great chapters on many subjects in here, but I think you'll like that one too. Don't worry about calcium. Eat real food.
Okay. How about fish? We're all told fish is good for us, or at least better. What are your thoughts on that?
It is less worse. And I hesitate to call it better because when you do substitution studies and replace red meat with fish, people do better. But again, when you replace that fish with beans, they do better yet. So fish, I mentioned how it's very acidic because of the high protein content and sulfur-containing amino acids. Puts a big strain on the kidneys from the sulfuric acid that metabolizes. If the animal protein in fish also stimulates IGF-1, promoting cancer. Fish is also highly contaminated now with mercury, PCBs, PBBs, and other persistent organic pollutants. We have so thoroughly polluted our waterways and oceans that it biomagnifies. Remember, the algae get it, the little fish get it, the big fish. So especially the large fish like tuna, salmon, swordfish are universally contaminated with mercury now. And you can give people a daily serving of fish a day and watch their mercury levels go up, double, triple, and then you stop the fish and they go back down. So we, even if fish were healthy before we contaminate them now, there's another double reason to avoid this food. It's not really a human food.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the impossible?
Sorry, but one more thing.
Yeah,
The reason it gets that reputation is because of the healthy omega-3 fatty acids, especially in salmon. These are way less worse for you than the saturated fats in chicken, eggs, cheese, and red meat. So in that way, the fats are better. We used to think it was all about the fat. Saturated fat, cholesterol bad, omega-3 is good. Eat lots of fish. We now know that the animal protein in the fish, the lack of fiber, the lack of phytonutrients, and the environmental contaminants way offset that effect and make it an overall unhealthy food. So even though it got some healthy omega-3s, it's offset by the negatives, if that makes sense. The next thing is that you can easily get your omega-3s from other sources. The best is to eat it daily. I mentioned 2 tablespoons a day of ground flaxseed, walnuts, hemp seed, and chia seeds also contain the healthy omega-3s. Some people have trouble converting the short chain in those to the longer chain, DHA, EPA. And if you're at all concerned about that, increasingly many experts are recommending a vegan source of DHA, EPA. So if you just type DHA, EPA, vegan, basically the fish don't make these fatty acids. They get it from the algae. And you can bypass the middle fish by getting it direct from the algae in supplements that just contain the healthy omega-3s in that form. 250 to 500 milligrams a day is probably a good insurance policy, but I also get my daily flax and chia seeds.
Okay. And can you talk about the Impossible Burger, some of the meat substitutes? I know you've called those a transition food, I think, in the past.
That's right. Yes, thank you. You've been
I'm a
watching some of
student.
my
I'm a Dr. Breakey student.
You've been paying attention.
Yes.
Um, they design a lot of these vegan foods to look and taste like the real thing. And for many people, that it is a good transition food. It's hard for them to think about doing without their cheeseburger or their cheesy sauce on their pizza, whatever it is. So these foods, including Impossible Burger, are definitely less worse than the real thing. For one thing, they don't have any heme iron like red meat. They don't have the carnitine to produce the TAMO we mentioned. They have some amount of fiber, but in order to mimic the real thing, they also have over 10 grams of saturated fat from plant-based sources. So they're non-animal, they're vegan, but they're not healthy. Still low fiber. Saturated fats are pro-inflammatory, create heart disease and strokes and high blood pressure. So think of it as a transition food, something that if you want, you can have on a now and then basis. And after a while, you find you don't really need it. And I've tried it before. It's been so long. I've been 43 years without meat. My last red meat was a Burger King Whopper in 1977. Now I have no desire for it, and I tried Impossible Burger. It didn't even, I don't know, you'll find that you sort of lose your taste for it. So that's right. Less worse, good transition food, but not healthy. Oh, Allison?
Sorry, I
Did
was
you?
muted. I
Oh, yeah,
apologize.
that's
How about
okay.
artificial sweeteners? Do they?
Artificial sweeteners should be avoided. More and more you're reading these days about the adverse effects, and there are several. One is that no studies have shown that they actually help to reduce weight. They trick your brain into thinking sugar is coming, so it triggers insulin release, which leads to fat storage. That's one process, one challenge. The other is a psychological one where people feel like, well, okay, I'm getting the calorie-free Diet Coke. I can get an extra large fries. And that's obviously something people can have some control over. But in many studies, it sort of becomes an inadvertent behavior to eat more because you're doing better here. And probably most importantly, we're realizing that they interfere with the microbiome. Many of them are not digested because they're artificial. They go in and they interfere with that delicate balance in your microbiome that's supporting your health, vitality, forming short chain fatty acids. They interfere with that process, leading to imbalance or dysbiosis, and thereby create ill health. So the answer is the less the better.
Okay. So can we talk about gut issues? So someone is saying that plant-based diets are difficult for people with Crohn's or other gut issues. Is that true? And is there anything you can do to manage that and actually be plant-based when you have those issues?
Yes, great point. Just like when smoking has the brunt of its effect on the lungs. Now it affects every cell in the body because the nicotine, the toxins go everywhere, but the major effects are on the lungs: COPD, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, lung cancer, chronic cough, all of those. Similarly, the American diet has the main effect on the GI tract. That's where it hits first, and everything from reflux disease to ulcers to Crohn's, inflammatory bowel disease, diverticulitis, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and down the line are largely affected by the American diet. Now, what happens though is people, especially with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, which are the two main forms of inflammatory bowel disease, is their microbiome gets so out of balance from a diet that's imbalanced that they try to eat plant-based, and their microbiome's not ready to help them with that because it hasn't, those particular ones that do that have not been growing because they haven't been fed. So think of it this way. If you um, if you haven't been eating beans, see, we have outsourced carbohydrate metabolism. There are over 1,000 different carbs in plant foods, and we only digest 17 of them. Our microbiome help to digest the other hundreds of them if you've been feeding them right. But if you haven't been feeding the ones that help you digest beans, then they sit there, they ferment, they form gas, bloating, irritation, and you feel like, oh, I can't tolerate beans. They create gas and bloating. I feel worse when I eat those. Well, what you have to do is go slow and gradual to rehab your bowels to get the bacteria that help digest them back in place. Dr. Bulshewitz has a good book. For those of you with GI questions, look up Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulshewitz. Another one is Dr. Desmond out of England, called A Plant-Based Diet Revolution. He's a gastroenterologist from there. And they deal all the time with all these various GI complaints. I should write a whole talk on this because but bottom line, they're also getting good examples of reversal of Crohn's, of ulcerative colitis, of recurrent diverticulitis, of GI, of GERD, of reflux, by a whole food plant-based diet. But you have to go gradual. You have to rehab your system so that you can get it going. So look up Dr. Greger's work and nutritionfacts.org, search for those conditions, look up Dr. Bulshewitz and Dr. Desmond, and you'll find great resources for helping to improve whatever GI conditions you have, but especially for Crohn's. Commonly reversible now. We treat it with strong anti-inflammatory medications, anti-immune suppressants that can have other bad side effects, and much better is to get to the root cause of the fiber deficient American diet. Good question. Thank you.
Okay, so if you do have a condition that you're worried about, you should absolutely have a conversation with your physician then, right? Because it doesn't mean that
Yes.
it doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you can't do it. We just have to do it maybe in a different way.
Thank you very much. I meant to make a important caveat here, is that none of this is medical advice because I don't know your particular situation. I'm giving you general education, and what you need to do is take this and work with it by learning yourself as much as you can, and then go to your physician. I don't want you to assume that what might be just irritable bowel syndrome is Crohn's without getting appropriately diagnosed. I don't want you to stop any treatments you're on without working with your doctor on this. Lifestyle can be powerful. In fact, sometimes almost too much. I guess I mean that in a good way. But when people switch to a healthy lifestyle, exercise, sleep management, good diet, their blood pressure can drop. And if they're still on medications for hypertension, it can go too low. They can start getting lightheaded and dizzy and feel like, whoa, this diet makes me feel worse. No, you're getting better. You no longer need your medicine. Or people with diabetes, their insulin resistance improves so quickly that their blood sugars crash, they feel worse, they need to stop their medicines. So work with your doc before you start this to say, if you're on any of the blood pressure or diabetes meds, immune suppressants, autoimmune or other, work with your doc to say, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what my research shows and why, and I need you to help me with the deprescribing part of this too. Again, if people want assistance from it, we do have the resources I mentioned, healthy living classes through our lifestyle medicine division at St. Joe's, our group visits with IHA lifestyle medicine certified providers, or my practice with lifestyle primary medicine primary care. If you feel like you need additional assistance from someone who's been doing this more specifically. But yes, thank you for mentioning that. Um, don't do take whatever I'm saying and run with it without also working with your physician. If you've got any health conditions or symptoms you're unclear of, don't just assume there's something. Make sure you get appropriately diagnosed and then make a plan.
Excellent. And we will absolutely share all of those resources in the follow-up email. So you will have clickable links to any and all of our resources. And we have some wonderful providers, including Dr. Breakey. Okay. Can you talk about sprouted grains? This person's asking about sprouted grain breads, wraps, etc. Does our body process these differently than other forms?
Yes, Ezekiel bread is the classic sprouted grain flourless bread, and you can get it usually in the freezer section. This is a great quality bread. The grains are 100% sprouted, and they actually gain nutrition in the process of sprouting. And they're low in fat, high in fiber. This is probably the best option for your breads. The next step would be just 100% whole grains. And one thing to look for, if you look at your bread to see whether it's really whole grain or just fake news by adding some caramel coloring and a white flour to thin it down, which most of them do, is to look for the 5-to-1 rule. If you look at the number of fiber grams per serving, multiply by 5, that should be greater than or equal to the total carbs. So, for example, 5 fiber grams, 25 grams of total carbs, good. That qualifies as a true whole grain bread. And again, if you're trying to lose weight, be a little careful with all floured foods because those are more completely absorbed and don't give as much for your microbiome. Similar with the sprouted breads, but you can be even more liberal with those. Again, depends on where you're at, what your goals are, if you're trying to lose weight. But of the breads, I highly recommend the sprouted Ezekiel bread is one of the best.
Okay. Is honey a good alternative to sugar as a sweetener?
Honey is just another form, nature's form of sugar. So it's still 100%. In fact, it's a split sugar. So it's a little sweeter. There's twice as much sugar molecules per volume. So you may be able to get by with using less. But it's still got a very high glycemic index, triggering insulin. And if you need something, though, compared to artificial sweeteners or compared to table sugar, it's less worse. If you want a little bit of real natural sweetener, just use what's called date sugar. These are dried dates that are just kind of ground into small granules of actual dates. They're sweet. They kind of sweeten things. They don't dissolve in coffee or tea, of course. If you want a little bit of honey in there, a teaspoon of honey, 16 calories out of 2,000, not going to make a huge difference if you like it. So yes, honey, maple syrup could be more natural than sugar, but just be careful. They're still 100% simple sugars.
Okay. And you recommended B12 as a supplement. Are there any other vitamin supplements you recommend?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Sorry, one more thing on honey. Honey actually can help canker sores. People get canker sores in the mouth there inside. This is not the cold sores on the outside, but down inside. A little dab of honey on there 3 times a day can help them heal faster. Honey's got a strong antibacterial effect, and we use a thing called Meta honey now on some wound care too. So one more thing on other uses for honey. Now supplements. Thanks again for bringing that up. I think I mentioned in my one key to take vitamin B12. Everybody should take 100 micrograms a day after age 50. If you're plant-based, at whatever age, you should take B12 100 micrograms a day because it's the sources from plant-based sources like yeast or fortified amounts are variable. So easy just to take a tablet, 100 micrograms a day. But after age 65, it's even harder to absorb it. So there you want to just increase it to 1,000 micrograms a day. And that should be for everybody. regardless of whether they're plant-based or not. B12 is an essential vitamin that has profound consequences if you don't get enough, from pernicious anemia to neurologic dysfunction, brain function challenges. Take vitamin B12, as I mentioned. The only other vitamin, and it's not really even a vitamin that I recommend, is vitamin D, is in David. As I say, it's not really a vitamin, it's a hormone caused by triggered by sun exposure. But nowadays we have 240 cloudy days per year in Michigan, and yet the sunny days are cold. We use sunscreen and cover up. So we just don't get the sun exposure like our ancestors did. And a good insurance policy for most everyone in Michigan is just to take 2,000 units once a day. Also essential for infants and kids to get a reliable source of vitamin D. And if there's any question, you can get a level check. Your doctor can check a blood test. And if it's very low, they may give a prescription one of vitamin D2, 50,000 units once a week. After that, though, save your money. Multivitamins, calcium, CoQ10, probiotics, you don't need them. Many ways they do more harm than good, including on your pocketbook. Get your vitamins, minerals, nutrients from real food, the way nature intended, because importantly, it comes along with the other phytonutrients, fiber, and other components of nutrition that help the vitamins and supplements to work better. Also, fiber supplement may help with constipation, but does nothing to help nourish the microbiome. The psyllium husk they use feed none of them. So counterproductive, it makes your symptom get better, constipation, but it doesn't help you for what you're really looking for fiber. So bottom line, get your nutrients from food. I did already cover the DHA EPA, which is one that's experts can't totally agree on, but probably a good insurance policy as well. Ground flaxseed, a lot of people benefit too from some other foods, not really supplements, but other foods like turmeric has a good anti-inflammatory effect for people with joint pains or arthritis. And 3/4 teaspoon a day is a good dose. The quarter teaspoon of ground black cumin also helps people to lose weight, lower blood pressure. And Dr. Greger has a whole host of these various extra kind of not supplements, but foods he recommends in his books, How Not to Die, How Not to Diet if you're looking for weight loss, and How Not to Age if you want to remain healthy and vital on into your 90s. So bottom line, B12 and D are the only vitamins. DHA, EPA is a maybe, essential fatty acids. And after that, eat real food.
Okay. Where do you land on salt?
Salt tastes good, but unfortunately not healthy. The extra sodium increases blood pressure, is pro-inflammatory, increases the risk of stomach cancer. And bottom line, we eat way too much. Part of the reason for that is our ancestors, sodium's an essential nutrient. You've got to get enough of it for everything to work in the body. And so back in the day before processed foods, and unless our ancestors lived by the ocean, they had to rely on the small amounts of sodium and naturally present in foods. So to find it, just like finding sugar in a piece of fruit, was rewarded. Your tongue has receptors for salt, triggers dopamine, gives you pleasure. So food companies discovered this. Adding this cheap ingredient, fat, salt, and sugar, gets people wanting more and more and more, selling more of what they're doing. But unfortunately, our health is suffering in the process. Swelling, edema, heart failure, chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, and its resultant challenges from stroke and other are all made worse by excess sodium. So you should aim for at most 1,500 milligrams a day, preferably 1,000, and sometimes even less if you have certain health conditions like congestive heart failure. And at the same time, I don't want you to get obsessed about it. If you're eating mostly whole food, plant-based, you don't have to worry about it. The sodium content of natural whole foods like lentils, broccoli, apples is good. It's low. It's normal. It's the processed and the foods that they put out there that come in wrappers and with unpronounceable ingredients that often have a lot of excess salt. So yeah, get rid of the salt shaker. You'll find you don't need it. And yet only 11% of the average American sodium comes from the salt shaker. So also watch for canned soups and salt additives to almost everything processed that you'll want to watch out for. Again, not all or nothing. I don't want you to get hyper and anxious about every sodium milligram, but do read the labels and make sure that you're um, decreasing your sodium intake.
Okay. Do you have about 5 more minutes, Dr. Breakey?
Sure. Yeah. No. This is good. I know we've gone over by a lot. If people need to go, of course, several already have, and they can watch more on the recording if they want. But yeah, if you've got more questions, this
Absolutely.
is what I do.
As long as you don't go, we have more questions. Okay. So there are several people who are saying that different aspects of a plant-based diet cause kind of abdominal distress. So whether it's beans or nuts, or some people say gluten. Is that sort of like a symptom of transitioning to plant-based because your body's not used to it? Or is that something that could really stop you from being plant-based?
Answer is it could be either, but much more commonly the former. Let me clarify that. For example, gluten is an example. About 1% of people have celiac disease, and this is a genetic inability to manage gluten. And people often learn early in life, and sometimes not till later, that eating wheat, rye, and barley, which are gluten-containing foods, cause them GI distress from gas, bloating, irritation, reflux, and diarrhea. And they can be tested for this. There are antibody tests and blood tests that can give clues if or while you're still eating gluten. But the gold standard is endoscopy with a small intestine biopsy. If a person has celiac disease, and that's about 1% of the population, they shouldn't, can't, won't ever be good with gluten. Another 1% of people have gluten intolerance. This is where they eat gluten and they truly don't do well with it, not from the genetic standpoint. And we're not clear exactly why that is, but they too will have a hard time with it, even if they try transitioning to it gradually. Probably another 7 to 10% of people have glutenophobia. They've thought that they were gluten intolerant, and sure enough, when they eat something, they start getting distressed because they're afraid they might. But in controlled studies, when you feed them hidden gluten that they don't know about, they do fine. So really, and for those 98% of people, gluten is a healthy plant-based protein, and present in wheat, rye, and barley. So it's overdone, but for those 2% of people, they do have to be careful. Um, and sometimes a challenge test can be helpful, avoiding it for 2 weeks and then trying a bunch of it and see how you do. But the much more common, as you implied, is that these foods, whether they beans, gluten, certain nuts or seeds or other, you've been avoiding them because somehow either you didn't like it or you thought you should. And then those microbiome that help digest them don't thrive. So when you eat them, they ferment, causing gas irritation, and that's called irritable bowel syndrome. The cure for that is just small doses, gradually increasing. And commonly, the FODMAP foods will do that too, fermentable oligo and polysaccharides present in garlic and many other foods. You can get a list of high FODMAP foods. And people with irritable bowel syndrome, we often say, hey, look up plant-based low FODMAP diet, start with that, and then gradually increase. So if a clove of garlic sets you off, just try an eighth of a clove for each day for a week. And then those microbiome that help digest those oligosaccharides will start to grow and thrive. And they'll say, okay, we're ready for a little more. And then you try a quarter of a clove and you get the idea, you work your way up. Similarly with beans, Dr. Bolshevitz says start with just a teaspoon of canned lentils. Canned lentils are very well cooked, so they have less of the resistant starches, more broken down, less likely to cause challenge or gas. Once you're tolerating that for a week, go to 2 teaspoons and then a tablespoon and then a quarter cup. And pretty soon you'll find that you're you've moved up your threshold and better able to tolerate these foods. So you're right. Someone switching from a standard American diet with the balance of enzymes, microbiome, digestive processes that are used to digesting all of that standard American gunk are ill-suited to manage a high fiber, healthy plant-based food. And up comes a gut wrench, and they assume that, oh, I tried that, doesn't work for me. They need to go more gradual, because they still want the benefits of that, but they just need to do it more gradually. Thank you. Excellent question.
Okay. And then a couple questions on protein. So, how do you
Mhm.
build muscles when you're eating plants?
Yeah, great question. There's a great documentary called The Game Changers. This is a James Cameron movie. I mean, the dude did Titanic and Avatar. He knows how to make great movies. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan in there really talking about how the athletes are gaining the edge, building better strength, endurance, balance, and overall improved performance with plant-based proteins. This makes sense because it's not see, you don't eat protein and build more protein. No study shows that eating more animal muscle builds more muscle. You eat the appropriate kind of protein, that is plant proteins, which are anti-inflammatory, not acidic, containing other essential nutrients to build protein, just like the strongest animals in the world, elephants and draft horses and rhinoceri, they build it entirely out of plants. So protein is present in every cell of every living thing. It's the building blocks of life. So every grain of brown rice, every cell of every apple, every piece of broccoli has protein in it, and in adequate and appropriate amounts with the right balance of amino acids. So this myth that we should be eating animal proteins to help build muscle, gain strength, or improve resistance or recovery time is simply a myth. Multiple studies now, and I think you'll really like the game changers, uh, have shown that what's best for us is the appropriate human diet protein from whole plant foods, especially beans and whole grains. Vegetables and fruits are good amounts of protein, but the calorie density is so low, you'd have to eat more than enough to meet your protein needs. The protein requirements are zero point 0.8 milligrams per kilogram. That translates to about 45 grams a day for women and 55 for average size men. And with endurance athletes, your needs do go up some, but so is your food intake. You're eating more calories, and with that comes more protein, because remember, protein is in all foods. So great question. Common myth that you need animal protein, and the exact opposite is true. Those athletes now gaining the edge by eating whole plant foods are actually doing better.
Okay, and we'll do one last question. So there
Mhm.
are several questions or comments about it being difficult to purchase plant-based foods because maybe they're more expensive or maybe they expire faster and I can't go to the store in time to get another round of vegetables or fruits. Can you talk
Yeah.
about what your week looks like? So some of the things that your staples that you buy every week or a couple meals that maybe you and
Yeah.
your wife eat consistently, just to
Yeah.
give people an idea of what it looks like to eat a plant-based diet on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's a great question. Every morning for breakfast, I have my steel cut oats. I get the quick cooking kind. I put them in the microwave with some goji berries, which, by the way, are very good for vision and antioxidants. You can get them online or at Chinese grocery stores, and they and cook that up for 3 minutes while I take my shower, come back, and it's ready to go. I add the ground flax seeds, some cinnamon, pumpkin pie spice, turmeric. And top on top with some berries. Berries and fruits, as best you can, you want to get in season. They're fresher, better. Farmers markets this time of year, or apples in the fall, of course, grapefruits. Now, some things like pineapple, banana don't grow around here, and you can get fresh as you're able to or as they're affordable. And some and you but also you should get frozen. In many ways, these are even better. You don't lose any nutrition by freezing foods, and they're frozen at the peak of ripeness. So I always have a bag of frozen blueberries in my freezer. And if it's off season or I run out of blueberries in the blueberry cabinet, I just put some of those on my oatmeal. So yes, frozen fruits and vegetables, and you can freeze broccoli, kale, others. Get a freezer down in your basement and get fill it with fruits, veggies, so you'll have a year-round supply. These are actually often cheaper, of course, than the fresh kind. They don't spoil, and they're therefore better that way. Um, for beans and whole grains, you could get either canned, just get the low sodium kind for beans, chickpeas, We always have lots of cans of black beans, chickpeas, white beans, putting them in soups and stews, and main dishes, tacos, and then whole grains. Get the grains, quinoa, the brown rice, and those are easy to cook up as well, as needed in short time. Lentils are very quick cooking as legumes. Um, and then look up a good cookbook called Plant You by Carly Bodrick. Great. Mm, yeah, don't have it right there. So Plant You has pictures of everything, easy, oil-free, whole, high fiber, phytonutrient-rich plant foods that are tasty and healthy all at once. So learn how to cook differently and think ethnic foods from stir fries to Chinese or Asian Thai stir fries with some spice in there, and use tofu instead of meat. Some Italian foods with whole grain or chickpea-based noodles, the spices and mushrooms instead of meatballs, or Mediterranean with the hummus, baba ganoush, tabbouleh. All these great flavors come from the plant kingdom, and you can make them fun and exciting. And that's what we do. Also, think salads. Make a filling salad by putting 2 or 3 different kinds of greens, from romaine to lettuce to spinach, kale. Then add some protein like chickpeas or tofu. Add some healthy whole grains like quinoa. Top it with some vinegar or a healthy dressing, and you'll have a meal all in itself. So we also like to grill in the summer, corn on the cob, grilled pineapple, grilled mushrooms, onions, broccoli, cauliflower. Um, Spice them up, have fun with it, and in general, it doesn't have to be more expensive. Again, buy fruits and vegetables in season, get frozen as backup, especially when it's off season. You could cook your own beans and rice are some of the least expensive of foods. So most people notice a decrease in their food bill. And of course, it's less convenient at first because it's not what you're used to. Oh, how am I supposed to do that? But when you think about it, buying a chicken and making sure you don't contaminate your kitchen and dressing it and undoing it and roasting it and spicing it and all that, it's a lot more work than just, putting some can of chickpeas on the side of your salad, cooking some quinoa for 12 minutes, and topping it with some 18-year balsamic. So ease of use, lower cost, and then most importantly, um, wow, the real cost is in the long run. If you're eating those foods that are pulling you down, creating medication, side effects, and copay, decreasing your productivity, and most importantly, where we started with your joy of life, that is priceless. So I wouldn't care if I were paying twice as much for a healthy diet if I knew it was going to decrease my dependence on, the kind of medicines and care that most people my age are needing. I'll be 70 next year, and I just love life. I want to be healthy, and that's priceless. So the real savings come in vitality and health span that are come from eating healthy whole foods. But yeah, great question. A lot of people think it's more expensive, less convenient, and they find once they get into it that quite the opposite is true.
Okay. And I have to say, I'm not an avid gardener, but I found that growing lettuce is actually pretty easy to do. And so I really do
Yes.
enjoy salads all summer, and it's very satisfying to go out and clip a couple leaves and kind of
Yes.
build your own food. So, and I love the farmer's market too. So I think those are great ideas because there is an extra satisfaction of having some of those fresh fruits and veggies. Oh,
Absolutely. Gardening, many benefits to gardening, from exercise to being outdoors to growing your own healthy organic food. By the way, don't let organic or not get in the way. Even conventional fruits and vegetables have only 1/13th the amount on average of contaminants of meat, dairy, and eggs because of the biomagnification effect. Sure, choose organic where possible, but again, if cost, convenience, or availability is an issue, don't be worried about having conventional fruits and veggies. They're just almost as good for you and way better than what else you might be eating.
and is
So I guess in summary, I just encourage people to prioritize health. So many people spend a lot of time putting money away in their 401k, hoping their money doesn't run out before they do, and then they end up, you know, uh, in a assisted living home, or worse yet, dying early from some disease that would have been preventable. So don't let your health span, I should say, prioritize not only your lifespan, but your health span. You want to be vital, active, successful, and independent long into your elder years. Here's the recipe. It's not all or nothing, and there's no for sure, but following my 8 keys for health will help you to optimize your chances of enjoying that.